Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Jenny's Cannabis Connection. I am here in Tempe, Arizona, where the recreational sales of cannabis is legal for those that are 21 and older. What I wanted to talk to you today about is this fantastic little pre-roll that I picked up at local joint in Phoenix. It is called Clementine. It is just a little half gram for people who love to wake and bake in the morning. This is the cure-all. You no longer have to go and grab a cup of coffee and also grab some indica. You can grab the sativa with the confidence of knowing that it's not going to agitate your anxiety. It will actually help it. This is also really good for depression and fatigue throughout the day. This is a strain that you can partake of, and it's not going to make you a heady high or make you forget what you're doing. This is actually a very focus-driven strain. It is testing at about 22%, which is a little high for this strain, but that's a good thing. And this concentrate actually won at the 2015 High Times Cannabis convention that they had in Michigan. So I was really excited to find this because I am a wake and bake person, but I don't like to get that super heady high in the morning. So this has been my cure-all. I would suggest that you guys pick this up anytime that you're at local, especially if you're a morning smoker. This has been one of my favorite strains that I've run across, especially for a little half-gram pre-roll. They're perfect for just one, maybe two people. It does have an incredible sweet citrusy flavor. One of the reasons that it does have the flavor it does is because it is a strain that was created by crossing Tangy with lemon skunk. And that's what gives it its citrusy flavor. So when you are at local, please pick up one of these pre-rolls. I know that if I end up talking with you, I'm definitely going to tell you because I've been so excited to find this particular strain. The other thing that I want to talk to you guys today about is Mississippi's Initiative 65. If you guys keep up with if you care and find out how important it is to find out how each state is conducting their marijuana medical programs, it affects us as well. If the states were more open, then we would be able to help them more. But that is not the case in Mississippi. In Mississippi, their initiative was called Initiative 65, and let me tell you what happened. The voters voted for it. Over 74% of the voters won. But as of May 14th of 2021, Mississippi will remain in the minority of the United States without a medical marijuana program after the Mississippi Supreme Court's decision to overturn an initiative voters approved, a decision that limits now citizen-led efforts to put issues on the statewide ballot. The entire ballot initiative was literally thrown out because the initiative needed signatures from 5 congressional districts to get on the ballot, but because Mississippi's stagnant population growth, there were only 4. In 1990, an initiative process was added to the Mississippi Constitution as Section 273. Section 273 requires petitioners to gather 1/5 of signatures from each congressional district. Mississippi had 5 congressional districts at the time, but lost 1 due to the 2000 census. The Section 273 was never updated. So the organizers actually gathered ballots from 5 districts based on the legal advice issued years ago by the state attorney general's office in the 1990s. As it turned out, they got their vote. They got their signatures. People worked hard to get it on the ballot. It got on the ballot. People voted, and it passed. Within days before the election, the mayor of Madison County, Miss Mary Hawkins Butler, filed a lawsuit contending the signature gathering requirement is mathematically impossible with 4 congressional districts. She opposed Initiative 65 because it limited the city's right to regulate the location of medical marijuana businesses. She stated that the city is pleased that the Supreme Court followed the plain language of the Mississippi Constitution and recognized that, unfortunately, the current voter initiative is broken. She actually stated this to the Associated Press. Now, Justice Josiah Coleman wrote for the majority, the 6 that voted against it. Okay, because there were only 9. So 6 voted against it. 3 were the dissenting votes. Remember these words. Okay, so Justice Josiah Coleman wrote for the majority that stated, to work in today's reality, it will need amending, something that lies beyond the power of the Supreme Court. 6 justices ruled that medical marijuana initiative is void because of the state's initiative process is outdated. 3 justices actually dissented. It said that Mississippi should have a medical marijuana program. Justice James Maxwell stated that the ballot initiative was done correctly and the people voted. Maxwell wrote that the majority opinion confidently and correctly points out that the Supreme Court cannot amend the Constitution. Okay, yet the majority does just that, stepping completely outside of Mississippi law to employ an interpretation that not only amends but judicially kills Mississippi's citizen initiative process. 1.3 million Mississippians voted in November, and more than 766,000 of them voted in favor of Initiative 65 and required the health department to establish a medical marijuana program to be done by the middle of the year. The people had actually invested money into medical marijuana type businesses. It showed promise. A cannabis cultivator had already begun leasing a warehouse in Jackson with the intent of opening it by summer. The National Conference of State Legislators reported Mississippi was among a dozen states that approved a medical marijuana program. Ken Neuberger, executive director of the Mississippi Medical Marijuana Association, said the justices overturned the will of the people. Patients will now continue suffering. Patients will now continue suffering so that many Mississippians voted to end. The state's attorneys stated Mississippi has 2 sets of congressional districts. One for the congressional elections and the other set of congressional districts for other purposes. An attorney for Butler stated that the only purpose for congressional districts is to have boundaries for electing U.S. state members. Chief Michael Randolph said during last month's hearing, 7 bills were filed over the years to correct the confusing language about ballot signatures coming from old and new congressional districts, and legislators have not made the change. Legislators have not said clearly why this was not taken care of earlier. Do you know that the estimated worth of a medical marijuana program in Mississippi was actually estimated around $250 million and possibly $800 million within 4 years? This is what the experts were saying. What kills this for Mississippi is this landmark decision could have implications on other initiatives passed under the same process, which justices now say are unconstitutional. Unconstitutional under Mississippi's Constitution. Andy Taggart actually stated the hardest job an elected Supreme Court ever faces is when it has to apply the law in the face of political opposition. I think the court made the correct decision, but no matter how someone voted in the referendum, we all owe the court our respect for following the law as it was written. They also decided to throw in that no other initiative can appear on the ballot unless this process changes. So what they are saying is that the legislature of Mississippi will not change the confusing language for gathering signatures for other ballot initiatives. They can't even do that until this process changes. So what the Mississippi Supreme Court did is actually halt everything. So now citizens of Mississippi can no longer go try to get something initiated on a ballot for people of Mississippi to vote for, because the legislature of Mississippi will not change the way that these ballots are being gathered, or not even the way they're being gathered. It's the way that that the congressional districts are looking at gathering the ballots. You can gather signatures all day long, but until they change the process, those signatures mean nothing. Your vote means nothing, and no initiative can appear on the ballot. So they've now made it clear that you will not have a medical marijuana program in Mississippi. They've stopped that for y'all. It's amazing. They can do that, but they can't get it straight. They don't want to clear up the language because it gives them a loophole. They knew this, I believe, from the get-go. I believe that they let people put thousands of hours in collecting signatures and sending out letters and finding people to stand up for them and to help them. And it was all for naught, because the mayor of Madison County, she fronted it. No doubt Mary fronted it. But was Mary the only one? I honestly believe that someone along the way said, "Psst, the state law says, Mississippi Constitution says 5 districts. We don't have 5 districts. We're not going to change that for it to be recognized, because as long as it's like this, they're not going to get any initiatives passed." And then on top of that, the Supreme Court said you can't even have a ballot initiative until this process changes. How quickly do you think it's going to change? How quickly do you believe that it's actually going to change in Mississippi? It's amazing. I'm going to go ahead and keep reading about some of this other stuff that I found out about Mississippi. Now, I've said this repeatedly, but people don't believe me. Mississippi did not ratify the 13th Amendment until March 16th of 1995. It was not certified under our law until February 7th of 2013. It was rejected December 5th of 1865. After 148 years, Mississippi finally abolishes slavery. Oh, you heard me. Do you think they just forgot? Do you think it was just something that happened that they weren't aware of? Or do you think that there were a whole bunch of old timers, sorry, my phone went off, a whole bunch of old timers sitting back talking about, we're not going to do this? For 148 years, they said it wasn't important. Okay, let me go on and tell y'all a quick little story I didn't even know about until I started doing other research. I found a couple of other stories. One is a man named Bobby Harrison wrote an article, November 4th of 2020 for Mississippi in Mississippi Today, entitled, "For the First Time in State History, Voters Removed Jim Crow Provision from Mississippi's Constitution." The meat of the story is the fact that this is the first time in history the people decided on their own, without federal courts stepping in. They actually opted to remove only one now, of the multiple Jim Crow era provisions designed to prevent African Americans from holding office. The lawsuit stated, a Mississippi Historical Society volume stated, the Constitution was written in 1890, Mississippi's Constitution now, was written in 1890 to ensure that whites held the majority of the House of Representatives, and the legal basis and bulwark, I don't know what this word is, but the encasing of it was actually designed, was the design of white supremacy in a state with an overwhelming and Negro population. I also want to let you know that when they did this, when they actually voted to in this provision for Mississippi's Constitution, that Governor Tate Reeves actually never gave an endorsement. Let me repeat that. Governor Tate Reeves never gave an endorsement to get rid of Jim Crow provisions in Mississippi's Constitution, and he was saying it was designed to help elect Democrats to a statewide office. Do you really believe that? Go back and read that article. Okay. December 10th of 2020. This is actually from the Washington Post. It was a story written by a man named William Sturkley. I love reading the Washington Post, especially their views on how things in Mississippi go down. Go and read about the riots at Ole Miss from the Clarion Ledger's perspective, and then go read about the riots that were at Ole Miss that was caused by James Meredith wanting to finish his he only had 2 years left and he wanted to finish his degree. Read about the riots that actually took place that the Washington Post reported on, and you are going to see a stark and grave difference in the way that they report these things. But anyway, let's talk about December 10th of 2020. Garrett Felber, an assistant professor at the University of Mississippi, better known as Ole Miss, received an email. Do you hear me? An email notifying him without warning of his termination at the end of 2021. Not even a letter. They sent him an email. How disrespectful to begin with. It only gets better from here. Felber is an award-winning scholar and internationally recognized as a leader in the study of what? Mass incarceration. He was a professor on leave at Harvard doing research study, I think, and was fired due to a failure to communicate or a breakdown in communication during a global pandemic. Many of his colleagues actually pointed out to his activism and his work to educate those who were incarcerated as some of the real reasons for his termination. His case falls in line with all other historic dissenting voices against Mississippi's norm and status quo. It is a disturbing historical pattern to assault one's freedom of speech no matter what. Those who fight or speak up against racial inequality or any inequalities in Mississippi will be shut up or hushed, and if you don't, you will. From the days of people fearing that literacy programs would lead to the overthrow of the institution of slavery, to destroying abolitionist literature, to an Ole Miss professor named James Silver. He wrote a book named Mississippi, The Closed Society, which was written, quote unquote, to expose the authoritarianism of the state's leaders. Mississippi comes as near to a police state as anything we have ever seen in America. Do you know when his book was written? 1962. The Mississippi State Sovereign Commission was formed to resist school segregation. These guys were the hub for all intel kept on individuals who spoke up or spoke out against what was going on in Mississippi during the civil rights movement. James Silver actually had a file. While on speaking engagements to New Jersey, North Carolina, Georgia, there were people keeping notes and reporting back on what he had said. Back in Mississippi, intel was actually paid to sit outside of his house, keep a log of his visitors and who he associated with. Eventually, he would be run out of the state. Now, it's very ironic that all these things would happen. Because these are professors, these are people that were trying to make a difference. This professor that studied mass incarceration, Felder, it's ironic because the governing body of Mississippi's universities has actually enacted a free speech policy. Like last year, its Commissioner of Education issued a statement arguing freedom of speech is protected by the First Amendment and must be nurtured and preserved on university campuses. But the question that this particular article asked was, but does that apply to untenured professors? Now, he also continued to talk about how universities across the nation, we're not talking about just in Mississippi, but across the nation, face a crisis of leadership. And even with this public statement made by Mississippi this past year, the end of this particular man's article literally said, but the debate won't be heard at Ole Miss. So I thought that was just insane that in 2020 you can be fired through an email during a global pandemic. And what is it that you've studied? What is it that you are a scholar of? I bet there are things that this man could tell me that would blow my mind, because I already know that Mississippi incarcerates more people than the rest of the United States. I also know that Mississippi incarcerates more people than most countries do. But as I was reading some of these articles and I was looking over some things, I thought that I would look at maybe some laws that are still on the books here in Mississippi, or, well, in Mississippi, because I am no longer there. Ultimately, because of a stagnant job market, there is no freedom of speech. There is no freedom of thought. You better not have a dissenting opinion, or, like me, you will be happier if you leave the state. Did the institution of Mississippi and all of its attributes literally drive its own out? It does every day. It does every day. But I thought I would look up some laws that are actually still on the books here or in Mississippi. And one of the articles I found was 13 silly laws in Mississippi that is still on the books. Some of them I found funny. Some of them I didn't find so funny. The person that wrote the article, I'm not going to mention, thought it was hilarious, and they poked fun at every one of these. But I'm going to go ahead and just read off a handful to you, and I want you to know, that these are laws that are still on the books, just like abolishing slavery, just like getting rid of one of the provisions that Jim Crow laws put in place for Mississippi to keep bolstering white supremacy and holding everyone else down. And please understand that the Ku Klux Klan didn't like people like me either. Because I love all God's people. There's not a race or a creed or a gender or anything that I love or don't care about. But that's the way I was raised. I was raised to respect everyone. But that don't mean you have to have everybody come in. That was a hard lesson to learn too. But these are 13 silly laws still on the books in Mississippi. It is illegal to explain polygamy. It is illegal to explain polygamy on the books. It is illegal to have 2 illegitimate children. The term living in sin is living in violation of the law. It's illegal to live with someone you're not married to in Mississippi. Sleeping with someone that is not your spouse can result in a $500 fine and 6 months in jail. Murder, of course, is illegal, but killing one's servant is not. Now, I don't know where to leave you guys with all this information, and I don't know what you're going to do with all this information, but I can absolutely tell you that, in my personal opinion, it would be to everyone's benefit. You're talking about $250 million, $800 million in 4 years. I'm shocked and surprised, and yet I'm not shocked and surprised, that there weren't riots in the streets, that there wasn't people at the fucking Capitol right there in Jackson telling them, I'm not going to have it. Or just firing up a pre-roll right there in protest. 766,000 people in one state felt that they had the right to have medical marijuana. People who are dying. People who are truly sick. People who are truly suffering. People who need help. And your state government, the people who get paid their salary when you pay your taxes, told you that not only are you not going to have it, You now, as a legal citizen of Mississippi, cannot start a ballot initiative. In some of the articles that I read about it, it was actually stated that they had said that the voice of the people has been thrown out. The voice of the people does not matter. I was raised all my life to believe that when you turn 18, your vote does matter. Your vote does matter. We all just believed that. I tell you today, sitting here, that in Mississippi, your vote doesn't matter. But you know how they were squawking and they were screaming about those 5 districts or the 4 districts and who your congressional representatives are, who your state congressmen are, who your governor is, who is elected to your Supreme Court. All of those positions matter. And you will not be heard. You will not be served. You will not be able to move forward until you get rid of those people. I, at times, feel guilty that I got out and that I'm able to sit here and have the job that I have and have the people in my life that I do and learn the things that I do and smoke a pre-roll from a local dispensary here in Arizona with no medical card. Recreational use is a choice. It is a choice that we should be allowed to have. It is a choice that I feel like, as a United States citizen, I have the right to say that it should be legal from a federal level all the way down. And I don't think that Mississippi has the right to tell its citizens what they will and won't have. That's not the way it's supposed to work. When the people speak, you give them what they want. But I knew as soon as Miss Mary got involved with her lawsuit, and as soon as it was going to the Mississippi Supreme Court, I knew then that somehow or another they were going to do all they could to shut you up and make you hush. And watch. Y'all need to keep a tab on when they decide to rescind the decriminalization of an ounce. Because I'm going to tell you, right now I believe you can walk around, and if you get pulled over and you have anything under 20, what is it? 7 of course 28 grams on you, your first offense, it's a $100 ticket and you don't have to appear in court, because as of right now it's decriminalized. But it was also decriminalized like in 1976, and then before 1980 it was rescinded, and then they did it again and it was rescinded. And every time they do this, there is a fluctuation in the amount of money that they're getting into the police stations, and all of that also leads up. All of this trickles down. All of this trickles down. And the question that I want to leave you with is, especially my viewers from Mississippi, because I know I have some, what are you going to do about it? I can't do anything about it. I want to promote you guys. I want to help you guys. I want you guys to be able to have the opportunities that I have. But I posted on Facebook that I wish that I could figure out a way to do an underground railroad straight through Louisiana, straight through Texas, right over here into Arizona. Because you can go to Louisiana now, guys. They have medical and they have recreational, and there wasn't a fight about it, and they didn't have to go and have a city's mayor get on her soapbox. When I'm pretty sure at one time or another she's had a nice toddy or a really good mimosa. And that was an adult choice that she made, and she didn't reap or suffer any consequences for that. but they were fighting prohibition against alcohol before they were ever fighting prohibition against cannabis. So I'm sorry, guys, that this was long and it was kind of a rant, but it grows. I have a passion for cannabis. I have a passion for people being able to have a better quality of life. And where I come from to where I'm at today it overwhelms me. It causes me to have anxiety. But no matter what ever happens, know that I love you and that every little bit that I work every day that's not dedicated to my family or my needs is going to start being dedicated to figuring out a way to get you guys out if you want to leave. People shouldn't suffer because of someone else's idea of what is legal, illegal, what is a sin, what is not a sin. Because denying someone help in a time of need when you have the power and the authority to change it, and our congressmen and representatives can go smoke cannabis on the sidewalk in Washington, D.C., but you're going to make people pee in a cup for $7.25 an hour? And you like it that way. And you have people duped. Oh, if we raise this, it's going to get up higher. I live out here in Tempe, Arizona. My rent, plus my utilities, plus the internet, and everything else ends up being almost the same. It sounds really scary. The numbers sound really scary. But go add up your electric bill, your water bill, your gas bill, your internet, your cell phone, and tell me what you come up with. But we like the sound of $650 in rent. How hard is it to pay $650 in rent when the best you can do is $7.25 an hour in the middle of a global pandemic? You're not. You're not. We're still in this. We're not free of not wearing masks just yet. Right now, it just doesn't even seem socially acceptable over here. I mean, most people will still wear their mask, especially the people that I see every day. We're still required to. And I am vaccinated. I went and got the vaccination just so when we do get to take them off, I won't have to worry as much, I feel like. Because I don't want to get it and give it to my child or my fiance, So, I mean, I'm not a vaccinator, but I felt like in the industry that I work in and with the people that I do work with, I would never want to compromise someone else's health because I wanted to be stubborn. That's where mine comes from. I want them to be able to see my face, and I want them to be able to cultivate a relationship with me just like they were doing before the masks were, put in place. So I just, I want us all to make better choices. I want us all to start caring about each other. And guys, if you have any ideas on ways that we could, as a unit, maybe come together and start raising money to fund a nonprofit organization to get these hurting people out of Mississippi, I am all ears. I've got an idea, I've got a design, I've got a layout, I've got a plan. But maybe it's time that I start asking for help. I don't know how long this YouTube channel is going to go, and I don't know what we're going to be doing a year from now. But I do tell you this, I have zero desire to sit back and watch a state tell its people that your voice doesn't matter, and that if they don't like something, they can just take that away from you. That's not what the United States stands for at all. But I know that on a federal level, it's going to have to, cannabis is going to have to be deschedulized. So I guess until that happens, it doesn't matter what anyone says or does. As in all things, unless the federal government steps in, Mississippi doesn't have to do anything. And I'm just thankful I'm not there anymore. But you guys are on my mind every day. And I want you guys to be able to call me in a year or two and say, hey, you won't believe what's going on. I'm going to be like, that's what's up. I just don't want to live there anymore. I'm happy out here. So that's where we're going to stay. But anybody from anywhere else that is watching, if you could provide me information on grants, if you could provide me information on how to help the cannabis community more, especially those that are in dire need of cannabis and cannot get it. I want to start helping people that are in the states of Mississippi and possibly Alabama and almost any other southern state. If they are interested in coming out here, they are provided a way. And I think that needs to be something that gets started very quickly, and I think that's why this has been heavy on my heart, because I sat back from afar and got to watch recreational happen here in Arizona, and how smooth it was, and how historical it was, and how much money was made. And then I see Mississippi and one little mayor in a loophole that they knew was there the whole time said nothing. It's almost as if the people that said they were helping them were standing back just waiting with, somebody knew and somebody didn't tell them is the only thing that I can say about it. I call it all, a conspiracy, I guess you could say, but it's really not even, it's an open conspiracy. Everyone knows it, but you can't say anything about it. If you say something about it, if you want to work in the cannabis industry and you want the cannabis industry in Mississippi, go ahead and promote it. You're going to lose your house. You're going to lose your home. You're going to lose your friends. You're going to lose your family. Don't be involved in church activities. They won't understand. But where some people are required to take Lexapro every day, and they have to take even a Vistaril or an Ativan or whatever to go to sleep at night, I don't want to choose that path. That's not what I want. I know enough about cannabis to say, I know I need a sativa in the morning, and I know I need a hybrid in the afternoon for the most part, and in the evening, if I need to go to sleep, if I have trouble going to sleep, I can take a little bit of indica and I'm good to go. But that's just the way it breaks down for me with my metabolism. And there's a whole science behind that too. And there are people in the state who know this, and it kills me that they would rather sit back and be quiet and stir up a little shit in a different pot so nobody's paying attention. And it's happening over and over and over again. And if you say anything about it, you're going to get in trouble. I've been told by many a wise men and women that if I wanted to speak my truth in Mississippi, that I was going to be asking for it. Because I had friends that didn't want legalization at all. I have friends that are dying and need it, and they're suffering. I'm sitting here looking at both, and I'm just thinking that, wow, This right here was a dream. I didn't even know this existed. And we're talking less than a year ago. And I watch all these things unfold in Mississippi, and I just have to sit here and say, like, Nina Simone said it best, man. Nina Simone said it best. And if y'all haven't listened to it, man, change is slow. But do you really want our grandkids looking back in Mississippi when they finally decide to legalize and be like, it took 150 years for it to be legalized? Because people in my generation can sit here and say, wow, slavery wasn't abolished for 148 years of Mississippi statehood. And you look at other states and you wonder why people, I don't wonder why people retire in Mississippi. I just don't understand why you wouldn't want to raise kids there, when there are so many other opportunities and so many different things that could be done. Like, I think I have a mind for marketing. There are certain things that I think I would be great at. But those weren't really options in Mississippi. But if I had taken the opportunity and taken my education out here, I could be marketing for cannabis today with all the things that I would have learned and been exposed to, and the understanding that cannabis is an adult choice, but it is also a medication with many other properties, that THC isn't the only thing that we need to pay attention to. And it's almost ridiculous that we haven't. And I'm sorry that this video is so long, but I just want you guys to know, like, it's so important to me. And I don't think that I will ever get over, in some ways, being excited to be at work every day. No matter what I'm doing, I'm always going to be grateful for the opportunities that I have and the people that I get to work around, because I'm learning every day. And that's so important. So guys, please, take care of yourself. Look, if you find yourself at local joint in Phoenix, please pick up a Clementine. Hopefully I will see you there. You guys take care of yourselves. Be good. Be safe. I love y'all. See you later. Bye.